From the Broadcast Center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus, this is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Good afternoon, I'm Richard Davis. Here's what's making news at 2:30. We begin with breaking news that former Abbotsford Police Chief Bob Rich has been appointed to look into the release of a man from British Columbia's psychiatric hospital before allegedly stabbing 3 people in Vancouver's Chinatown. Premier David Eby says he's read the BC Review Board report on the accused and wants Rich to determine how a violent, psychotic person could be released into the community. BC is expanding the program that provides free post-secondary tuition for former youth in care. Post-secondary education minister Selena Robertson says the provincial tuition waiver program has had a, quote, massive effect on the lives of former recipients. She says that's why it's being expanded to all former youth in care and will no longer be capped on a person's 27th birthday. The program, which is accessed by 2,300 college students since it was launched in 2017, now provides free tuition at all of 25's BC public post-secondary institutions, the Native Education College, and approved union-based trades training courses, while offering a new $3,500 grant to cover books, computers, and other supplies. A Kelowna teenager is in critical condition after falling off a Lime e-scooter, and some in the province are considering more serious regulation of the vehicles. With more, here's our very own Lachlan Irvin.
The 19-year-old currently in intensive care at Kelowna General Hospital isn't the only person who's been in an accident with an e-scooter. Kelowna RCMP has filed over 100 such incidents since July 1st. This comes as politicians across the province are questioning how to regulate the small vehicles. E-scooters are illegal to ride on most sidewalks in BC, but not in New Westminster, where Councilman Daniel Fontaine has proposed a bylaw that would set speed limits for e-scooters on sidewalks. Fontaine says that while an outright ban of the devices is not an option, more rules on their use is crucial to preventing accidents like the one in Kelowna. Lachlan Irvin, 1680, The Crow.
A youth has been arrested in Kelowna for an unprovoked attack on another teenager. RCMP Corporal Michael Gauthier says the unnamed suspect remains in custody, but is scheduled to appear in court for a bail hearing. Gauthier says the video shows a person assaulting a 17-year-old Sikh student and spraying him with bear spray in the Monday night attack that began on a transit bus and continued after the young victim got off. It is the second attack on a Sikh student aboard a Kelowna bus this year, and hate crime investigators are continuing to probe that assault. Oceanwise researchers are leading a pioneer study on whales' winter behavior. The results could lead to a better understanding on how to protect this endangered species. Sebastian Arancibia has more on the story.
Department of Fisheries and Oceans Canada has identified a gap in the data regarding the habitat used by whales during winter. The reason behind this gap is that winter can be a difficult time for scientists to do research on whales. Gary Sutton, whale researcher at Oceanwise, is leading the investigation that is looking to fill the gap. He says this study is crucial to move forward conservation efforts.
Understanding which whales are here in the winter, even though it is quite few, but even understanding which ones are here and what they're doing, where they're feeding, what they're feeding on, is all going to be important moving forward for conservation efforts.
Oceanwise is planning to hand out the results to the DFO by 2024. Sebastian Arancibia, 1680, The Crow.
Now, the U.S. Coast Guard in Northern California will begin patrolling, well, not for fish, but for pirates. ABC's Alex Stone has more.
Along Oakland's waterfront, it sounds like a story out of another part of the world or a ride at Disneyland. This one, Pirates of Oakland instead of Pirates of the Caribbean. Pirates have been boarding boats around the Oakland estuary and stealing stuff from them, making them inoperable, where they then sink.
They take things that are easily fenced, outboard motors, radios.
And so now the Coast Guard will be out on pirate patrol.
Our plan is to increase the level of Coast Guard law enforcement presence.
They're working with Oakland police to put a halt to the piracy. Alex Stone, ABC News.
It's currently 23 and sunny outside our studio in beautiful Burnaby, BC. It's a high of 24 today with the sun sticking around over the weekend. Friday and Saturday are going to feel a lot like today with sunny skies and highs of 21 degrees. For more stories, news updates, and sports, including our coverage of the BioSteel bankruptcy, stay tuned to 1680 The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
For a young junior hockey player is tough, especially for ones that are considered stars. Take a look into the good, the bad, and the ugly of Canada's most loved sport. Our reporter Zach Clark was able to sit down with some of the PGHL's finest.
Chris Fordham's is the living embodiment of my favorite line from Rudyard Kipling in the poem If. Kipling talks about what it means, what it takes to grow up and become a man. And the line is, quote, "If you meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two imposters just the same." And actually that line is also over the championship court in Wimbledon as the players come out. But what Kipling means is there are times in life where you will win and you will lose. And obviously in hockey that's the same. But the moment itself of victory and defeat is fleeting. The moment, in other words, is an imposter. It should not define you. Instead, how you react actually defines your manhood and your character. Are you magnanimous? Are you gracious? Are you bitter? And so in the case of Fordham's, to bring it back to the Whalers, my enduring image of Chris Fordham's will not actually be him scoring. He certainly did plenty of that. Instead, I shall always remember the Fordham's who lost. But in losing, he displayed his true character. In the Ladner Leisure Centre earlier this month, in March, he was red-eyed from crying after his junior career ended. But he collected himself and stood tall during my interview with him outside of the dressing room. He spoke very movingly about his 4 years with the Whalers.
Thousands of people play junior hockey, and tens of thousands watch it. It's such an important part of Canadian culture, but few understand the grueling, difficult lives of junior hockey players. But with years of experience in hockey, Alistair was able to shed a little light.
Hi, I'm Alistair Burns. I'm the PA announcer and the public relations spokesman for the White Rock Whalers, and actually I'm a BCIT alumnus as well. I graduated in 2010.
Alistair knows that it's not just a fun pastime. It's still a sport where the teams have to compete. The work these players have to put in is strenuous, and it isn't always rewarding.
It's a grind, because each of these young men have to be disciplined. Junior hockey can be very expensive. In the case of Junior B, each player pays thousands of dollars per season to play. But of course, the coach makes the decision of whether you're sitting, whether you're playing, who's a healthy scratch, who's injured, and so on. So one day you're signed to a team and the next day you can be traded or released. I've seen it many eager players who walk in to chat to the coach, the door closes, and all of a sudden, bam, your life is turned upside down.
But as Chris Fordham's longtime teammate Bryce Margetson will tell you, it's not just the fear of being traded that makes it hard. The game itself is a battle.
And that was my first real wake-up call, because all the 20-year-olds, they would not leave you without hitting you. If you had that puck and you got it out, they're going to finish the check, and it hurts. Especially when you're a 16-year-old kid or a 17-year-old kid, it hurts.
But for Chris Fordham's, the dedication and skill required to survive in the league seemed to be natural. He took home both team or league awards in every single year of his junior career. He quickly rose to being one of the most relied-on members of his team, being first in points 3 consecutive years and being named captain in his last. But in that last year, it seemed like all the hard work and dedication had finally paid off.
Svensson leaves it for Sherwin. Sherwin pass across, shot, scores! The captain Fordham's, we've talked about how he needs 4 points tonight to set a new record for the PGHL, and just 8 minutes into the first period, he's got his first.
Yeah, we talked about how this is actually a very doable record for him to break here tonight. This could be a good point night for the White Rock Whalers. Sherwin, great pass, great hockey IQ to be able to think about who would be open in that circumstance. Finds Fordham's wide open. Not much Sharma can do in that scenario. 2-on-1, empty net basically for Captain 40, and well, he's always going to bury that. And yeah, like you said,
I think I've grown a lot. I think I've probably more grown as a person, more than a player. Obviously, my points have grown a bunch, but I think that's just getting older and getting more comfortable in the league and everything like that. But the organization has helped me grow as a player just through the systems play and every practices, and the coaches have helped me along with everything that I've asked them to. If I needed reference for something, they've helped me with it, or anything like that. They've helped me a lot as a person and a player.
His relentless self-improvement, both on and off the ice, didn't go unnoticed. In 2022, he was named the Whalers' 3rd ever captain.
I don't know what I expected, but I was pretty ecstatic to get the captain. Obviously, my first year, my veteran, Calder Newson, was the captain. And then the year after that, my cousin, Tyler Price, was the captain for the past 2 years, so that was pretty cool to get captain after that from him. I don't know, I think expected to just have a good year and just make the playoffs as a captain. That's all I wanted to do. Push the boys forward, just make sure we're doing better each year.
What many don't understand is that this isn't just a side activity. The boys, well, as Fordham's line mates will tell you, they can end up becoming your lifelong friends.
Me, Fordham's, and Margetson and Svensson are looking into post-secondary hockey, maybe UBCO, Trinity Western, UBC, something along those lines. But yeah, for sure, definitely.
Everybody ended up blending in so well and blending together, which I think really honestly helps with every single team in this league, because if you guys aren't friends off the ice, there's not going to be chemistry that leads onto the ice. And I think that's what we had the best, was our chemistry off the ice, which led to our on-ice success.
And on-ice success they would have. Fordham's won the MVP of the entire league, and his line put up an unbelievable 243 combined points. So Fordham's, along with his line mates, led the team through the highs.
Newsom takes it across. Fordham's pass in front. A juicy rebound given up on the pad, and they score! Big goal, Cole with the hat trick with his back against the wall. Cole Svensson does it all, and that will do it. In overtime, the hat trick for Cole Svensson. And the unfortunate final lows.
And applaud the Delta Ice Hawks on a series victory, 4-1. They close it out here in Game 5, 4-2 over the White Rock Whalers.
And just like that, it was all over. The years of training, perseverance, and hard work had come to its bittersweet end. Many junior players continue on after, like Fordham's and his line plan on doing. Many others hang up the skates altogether. But the one thing every player has is their own unique story and a passion for the game. We hope you enjoyed this peek behind the curtain of the good, bad, and ugly of Canada's most loved sport. I've been Zach Clark with my producer Liam Higgs for 16.
Back in September, a group of engineering students here on campus came together with a common goal, restarting the BCIT Racing Club, which competes in off-road vehicle competitions. The problem? It's been over 3 years since the club was active. Jake McGrail has the story.
Yeah, so it was a bit chaotic for the first couple months. In fact, it's still kind of chaotic.
That's Sawyer Laspa, a third-year student and the president of the club, and as he tells it, a somewhat reluctant president.
I would say everyone wanted me to do it, so it wasn't really a I want to be in this position. It's more of a we need somebody to be in this position, and I'm probably the best fit at the moment for it.
Taking charge of the week's meeting sporting a backwards cap and his steel-toed boots, Sawyer announces that they've taken a big step forward in the manufacturing process.
We got the engine, so we're pretty happy about that. Nothing looks like it's damaged. We're gonna have to get oil before we can, and gasoline before we can actually start it up.
Sitting off to the side is Chief Engineer Vincent Van Art. He's in charge of designing this year's vehicle, one that's very much still a work in progress. They have the frame and the engine, but the club's members are still working on different parts of the car, from the suspension to the transmission and more.
It's a lot of machining, manufacturing, some more design work, organization, figuring out accommodations, testing. Things are going to break. Hopefully we have enough time to fix them.
The ultimate goal is to take their vehicle to the Baja SAE event in Oregon at the end of May, an international design and racing competition. Of course, they need a working vehicle to compete, and given the tight deadline and the fact that no one in the club has competed at Baja before, there's no guarantee they'll have it ready.
I'd say that's pretty consistently been a 50% shot the whole way through. So there's a lot of things that can go wrong, and there's a little bit of luck involved, so we'll just see how things work out.
Yeah, Ben's at about 10 degrees already,
Yeah, okay.
so we just need a bit more.
Oh, I'm sliding. Okay, like this.
Oh, hey, look at that.
Yeah, it is dead on perfect.
Beauty. Yeah, looks good. Great. So now you guys can make another one, right?
Have to put our engine here, have that on like, well, we have to put that on like a 90-degree bevel block.
See if this thing runs.
Even if they can't get their vehicle done in time, Sawyer wants to be at the competition to take it in and learn from it.
I'm like super pumped. It's going to be really good. Sometimes you can get in like a bit of a bubble where you think that you're the best, and it's going to be interesting to see what the other programs have come up with from different schools and kind of see the possibility of what we could be doing in potentially a few years if the club continues to run.
Vincent is more optimistic, but he's not setting the goal at championship or bust.
We would like to get within, hopefully, the top 10. It would build morale. It would also help with funding. It'd also be a lot of fun. And I think the school, BCIT, would be quite proud if a club actually did quite well in one of these competitions.
This new iteration of the club still has its growing pains, but for Vincent, it's fostered a real sense of community amongst its members.
I found the biggest aid in building a good team, working well as a team, is just keeping the communication open, working with everybody, having good conversations, and then also just having friendly conversations, meeting with people, and trying to have a good time while we work in the club.
It's that sense of collaboration that Sawyer thinks will benefit everyone, not just in terms of building their Baja vehicle, but in the rest of their schooling as well.
Connecting with the first and the second years, I think that's been really valuable. The fourth years, at least in the mechanical engineering department, they've been kind of distant, and so I think it's been really nice to get to talk with the first years and the second years and, give them some advice on how they can, succeed in the program, and also just like reminisce on like, oh yeah, when we were in first year and all that stuff was so hard and now it's really easy.
For 1680 The Crow, with my co-producer Jen J.
The modern car industry is ever growing, but the historic car industry refuses to die. Zach Clark has more.
As time marches on, more and more classic cars are destroyed, some for parts, some through accidents, and many through neglect. But there's a small niche of collectors fighting hard to preserve these historic machines. Nick Cormier is one such collector, and as we stepped into his garage, we could tell he was passionate.
I'm very much what you'd call a hobbyist, so my knowledge of cars is very specific to classics, not what your everyday person's driving around. I don't mess around with that computery stuff. I'm not here to make money. The car in question is a 1962 Mercury Monterey, which I found on Craigslist for $1,500, and dragged out of a field with a flatbed and had it brought over to a garage, which I had rented for a couple of years.
It's not just not profitable, it's expensive. So why do people like Nick invest so much money and time into this?
As rough as it was when I picked it up, buying that car is one of the things I regret least doing in my life. When people see me with it, like I'd have my garage door open and people would walk by, I would get so many compliments and comments and people asking me about it, and there's just such interest out there for it. And I couldn't let this piece of history, this rolling piece of art, go to waste, even if it is a terrible financial decision and soaks up a lot of my time.
But it's not just time and money. It takes skill, too, using dangerous power tools and even welding.
In terms of the metalworking component, that was high school. I took metal fabrication in high school, easily my, best class, favorite class. It's nice to get to carry that over into my hobby.
His current car is his longest project, having started on it almost 3 years ago.
So that car had sat before I bought it for approximately 15 years. And I have a feeling that when it was parked, it wasn't in the best shape to begin with. Some of these cars are parked for a reason.
A car in need of this many repairs requires someone with knowledge, expertise, and a willing to put up with a little monotony.
Okay, pedal down, pedal up. We've got fluid now. Okay. Pedal down. Pedal up. Pedal down.
He knows his cars might never reach a showroom floor, but according to him, that's never been what it's all about.
It's a bit of a Havana restoration, not the clean edges and the prettiest.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Teresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
From the Broadcast Center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus, this is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
This is your 3 o'clock news update on 1680 The Crow. I'm Zach Clark. David Eby announced today that former police chief Bob Rich will lead the team examining the forensic psychiatric hospital in Coquitlam. The hospital has come under scrutiny after allowing a day release pass to severely mentally ill patient Blair Evan Donnelly, who went on to stab 3 people at the Light Up Chinatown Festival. Bob Rich headed the Abbotsford Police Department for a decade, and Eby stated he will have every resource available. Eby also said he still does not have an answer as to how Donnelly was granted release, as the last update on his file stated he continues to meet the threshold of a significant threat. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has announced several affordability measures at the end of his party's caucus retreat in London, Ontario. He says the best way to tackle housing affordability is to ensure all sorts of different kinds of houses are being constructed. He says more and more Canadians are renting and the cost of rent keeps going up.
Canadians need more buildings intended for renters, not just condos that turn into Airbnbs that are sold to foreign buyers as financial assets. So, I'm pleased to announce that we are going to be removing the federal GST for the construction of new apartment buildings, and I'm encouraging all provinces to do the same.
Trudeau also revealed that Industry Minister François-Philippe Champagne will be asking grocery companies to finalize a plan by Thanksgiving to stabilize food prices in Canada. If they don't, the federal government may force them to do so through tax measures. Kelowna RCMP are still investigating an assault on a BC Transit bus, though one suspect is now in custody. A Sikh teen was verbally abused with racial slurs by 2 young adult males before the bus driver kicked all 3 off the bus. The 2 males then assaulted the Sikh teen with pepper spray before running away. Kelowna RCP are asking anyone with our information to come forward. Yesterday, the Vancouver City Council held a vote to increase multiple license fees. Riley Loong has the story.
On Wednesday, the City Council has proposed and voted on increasing business licensing fees, residential parking permit fees, and more. The most significant one is the short-term rental license, which will see an increase from $109 to a staggering $1,000. Though not finalized, the increase in licensing fees will be in Vancouver's 2024 budget plan. Vancouver Mayor Ken Sim explained that the increases were necessary to not up property taxes. The additional revenue will generate an extra $15.2 million for the city, making up a 1.4% property tax increase. Riley Lung, 1680 The Crow.
And British Columbia is expanding the program that provides free post-secondary education for former youth in care. Post-secondary education minister Selena Robinson says the provincial tuition waiver program has had a massive effect on the lives of former recipients. She says that's why it's being expanded to all former youth in care and will no longer be capped at 27 or younger. The program, which has now been used over 2,300 times since its launch in 2017, now provides free tuition at all 25 of BC's public post-secondary institutions, the Native Education College, and union-based trades training courses. It also offers a $3,500 grant to cover books and other supplies. Oceanwise researchers are leading pioneer studies on whales' winter behaviors. The results could lead to a better understanding on how to protect this endangered species. Sebastian Arancibia has more on the story.
Department of Fisheries and Oceans Canada has identified a gap in the data regarding the habitat used by whales during winter. The reason behind this gap is that winter can be a difficult time for scientists to do research on whales. Gary Sutton, whale researcher at Oceanwise, is leading the investigation that is looking to fill the gap. He says this study is crucial to move forward conservation efforts.
Understanding which whales are here in the winter, even though it is quite few, but even understanding which ones are here and what they're doing, where they're feeding, what they're feeding on, is all going to be important moving forward for conservation efforts.
Oceanwise is planning to hand out the results to the DFO by 2024. Sebastián Arancibia, 1680 The Crow.
And the BC Ministry of Agriculture and Food has just announced a $15.5 million fund to strengthen the food supply for people in rural and Indigenous communities. Our reporter Alicia Nolasco has more details about this fund.
The Food Affordability and Innovation Fund that is going towards the new BC Food Storage, Distribution, and Retail program is helping recipients improve regional distribution networks and shared storage capacity. This includes reducing costs in facilities, transportation, and implementation of new technology. The investment is aiming to increase food security and support BC's rural independent grocery store operators. The Minister of Agriculture says that this will help with the local economy and affordability in the province. Alicia Nolasco, 1680, The Crow.
Russia's foreign ministry has declared 2 U.S. diplomats as persona non grata and ordered them to leave the country within 7 days. U.S. State Department spokesman Matthew Miller says, yet again, Russia has chosen confrontation and escalation over constructive diplomatic engagement.
This unprovoked expulsion of our diplomatic personnel is wholly without merit, as is the case against a former Russian contractor of our embassy who was arrested for the supposedly nefarious task of performing such activities as providing our embassy with media clips.
And a history-making experiment has just come to a close. For the last 2 months, a pig kidney has worked normally inside a brain-dead man. Surgeons at NYU Langone Health removed the pig kidney and returned the donated body to his family for cremation. The genetically modified kidney worked properly for the first month before showing small signs that rejection was forming. But doctors say that the kidney's function returned with simple medication changes. The trial could help as regulators decide whether to allow clinical trials of pig organs. An explosion at the world's largest rail yard in western Nebraska has forced evacuations after toxic smoke generated when perchloric acid aboard one of the train cars caught fire. The explosion occurred around midday, but authorities have yet to determine the cause. The evacuation radius is a 4-mile radius around the rail yard. It's been days of crazy weather that's produced torrential rain, flooding, sinkholes, and even a tornado in New England. Now, Boston's Chief of Energy, Environment, and Open Space, Mariama White-Hammond, says coastal Massachusetts should prepare for Hurricane Lee.
The center of the storm and the areas of highest wind and rain are not projected to pass over Boston. According to the National Weather Service, Hurricane Lee will bring wind, rain, and coastal flood impacts to coastal southern New England Friday night into Saturday. The heaviest impacts will be experienced on the Cape and Islands.
The U.S. state of Maine is under its first hurricane watch since 2008. And a Detroit businessman has been sentenced to over 2 years in federal prison for bribing the head of a Michigan marijuana licensing board. John Delali admits he provided almost $70,000 in cash and other benefits to Rick Johnson. Johnson was a chairman of the marijuana board for 2 years before the board's disbandment in 2019. Delali had a stake in a company that was seeking a marijuana license. Johnson has pleaded guilty to accepting bribes and is awaiting a sentence. And a UK man was convicted for online sex crimes against several young girls, including a 12-year-old from Surrey, British Columbia. An RCMP statement says British police arrested 29-year-old Kevin Brock in February and asked Mounties to help identify the Canadian girl in April. RCMP say Brock was charged with offenses related to online grooming and inciting children to engage in sexual acts. In the world of sports, the new Professional Women's Hockey League will host its first player draft on Monday. Our very own Lachlan Irvin is here to break down the rules and what the local connections the league has.
The PWHL draft is an expansion draft, filling out the inaugural rosters for the original 6 teams, 3 Canadian and 3 American, and the selection order will flip each round. The first overall choice belongs to Minnesota, who's expected to use it on college standout Taylor Heisey. Saanich Micah Zandy Hart is already one of the league's first official players. The 26-year-old defenseman signed with New York on Sunday. But there's plenty of Canadian stars still available, including Natalie Spooner, Erin Ambrose, and Emma Maltese. The PWHL draft kicks off on Monday. Lachlan Irvin, 1680, The Crow.
We're joined now by Lachlan in the studio. And Lachlan, besides Micah Zandy Hart, what big-name players have already signed with PWHL teams?
Plenty. If you've watched the Olympics or any Women's World Championships in the last, decade or so, you probably recognize a few of these players. Like Hillary Knight is already signed with Boston. Obviously, Marie-Philippe Poulin, a Canadian legend. She's playing for Montreal. Kendall Coyne-Schofield's going to Minnesota. And Sarah Nurse, who was recently on the cover of NHL 22, is heading up to, or NHL 23, sorry, is heading on to Toronto. So there's a lot of players that you're going to recognize in this new league.
And is there a possibility of Vancouver seeing a PWHL team in the near future?
So right now, there's nothing concrete about a Vancouver team coming at any point. However, there has been talk that they're planning to do games in neutral sites, and particularly in partnership with the NHL. So there is a possibility that while we might not see a team in Vancouver any particular time soon, we might see some games at Rogers Arena in the future.
There you have it, Lachlan. Thank you so much for joining us. In other news, Canopy Growth files for creditor protection as its business, BioSteel, goes bankrupt. BioSteel, an energizing water substitute targeted at athletes, is one of the NHL's leading sponsors, and this movement adds a huge question mark to this upcoming season. The move comes after Canopy announced in June that it made management changes since uncovering material misstatements regarding BioSteel's finances. And the NHL Players Associations have sent its executive director and assistant executive director to Columbus, Ohio to investigate reports of new Columbus Blue Jackets head coach Mike Babcock invading players' privacy. This story has caused a lot of drama in the past week since it first broke on popular hockey podcast Spit and Chicklets, with multiple players stepping forward to say the allegations were true based on their experiences, but Mike Babcock and the Blue Jackets organization strictly refuting it. The whole situation calls into question the integrity of hockey reporting and whether or not Babcock should have even been given another chance in the National Hockey League. It's 23 degrees and sunny here in Vancouver, with tomorrow looking to be even hotter. That was your 3 o'clock news update on 1680 The Crow. I'm Zach Clark.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikki-King.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikki-King. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
Winter is coming, and you might be asking what Wales' plans are for this season. Well, no one knows for sure. The weather conditions during that time of the year make it difficult for scientists to research. However, the mystery could be unveiled soon thanks to a study Oceanwise is conducting along with Prince of Wales Whale and Marine Wildlife Adventures. To know more about this research, I talked with Gary Sutton, the person who's leading the study, about how this new data could help to further conservation efforts. Tell me more about that study. Why is it so important? Why do we have that gap of data?
Yeah, exactly. So it is important to address it because it is a gap in the data and in the recovery strategies of humpback whales, southern resident killer whales, as well as Biggs killer whales. One of the big data gaps is what they're doing in the wintertime. So that's why we kind of moved in to sort of address that question. The reason why it really hasn't been done prior is one of the reasons is that it's not the easiest time of the year to work. Obviously, the days are a lot shorter. The weather tends to be a lot more unpredictable and rough. So, you don't know if you're going to be able to get out on a day-to-day basis. And part of the problem with, obviously, the research world is all the projects that any organization is doing is all run under budgets, right? So you kind of have to pick your best bang for your buck and where you're going to get the most data. And traditionally, that's been in the summertime. That's because the weather can be more predictable. You're going to have a better chance of getting out there. But another one of the reasons is historically, anyway, the resident killer whales spent a lot more time in the Salish Sea during the summer months when they were following salmon runs to the mouth of the Fraser River. And due to a myriad of reasons, salmon stocks along the Fraser have collapsed. So these fish populations that aren't doing as well have resulted in the whales not spending as much time here in the summer, the resident killer whales. But in the wintertime, we're starting to get a lot more reports of them in the Salish Sea for the southern residents. So that's why I think it's important to understand why they're here more in the winter, what they're feeding on, and where they're feeding. So that's one aspect of it. The other one with Biggs killer whales, which are our mammal-eating population, they're seen in numbers here throughout the entire year. Through spring, summer, fall, and winter, they're here. However, in the wintertime, there's less effort on the water because of the reasons I mentioned prior. So, it's kind of nice to be able to get out there and document which Biggs killer whales are here, again, where they like to hang out and what they're feeding on. We know they feed on marine mammals, and in the summertime, their diet is more than half of it is comprised of Pacific harbor seals, but be interesting to see how that shifts in the winter, if it does at all, and whether they tend to feed more on sea lions, which are here typically throughout the winter months more than they are in the summer months. And then finally, humpback whales, which for a long time, just like all big whales across the planet, they were hunted extensively for oil because whale oil was what petroleum is today. So for a long time, humpback whales weren't here. And they started slowly coming back in the mid-90s, but it wasn't really till about the mid-2010s where we started to have these humpbacks returning in massive numbers to the Salish Sea. We're talking over 800 individuals that are identified in the Salish Sea now. So they are a migratory species where most of them are here in the summer and into the fall before they leave on their migration toward Mexico or Hawaii in the winter. But having said that, we're getting reports of humpback whales here throughout the entire year, even in the winter. So this could be due to the staggered nature of their departures and arrivals, or possibly even that some individuals are spending the entire year here. So, and that's another reason why there's a data gap with humpback whales, because this is really new for them to be here. So understanding which whales are here in the winter, even though it is quite few, but even understanding which ones are here and what they're doing, where they're feeding, what they're feeding on, is all going to be important moving forward for conservation efforts.
Yeah, you were talking about this movement. What is the role that climate change plays in this shifting of behavior that you were describing before?
It's hard to say, to be honest. Climate change could have impacts on salmon stocks, with different temperatures of the waters, which could have effects on our resident killer whales. But that's all stuff that's, at this point, I couldn't speak to that being a for sure reason why their patterns have changed. I think moreover, the more so the problem is that for the resident killer whales, fish stocks, particularly in the summer months, have struggled. And climate change may play a role in that, but I think more importantly, historic overfishing, the building up of major, cities around salmon-bearing rivers like the Fraser, all these things have had a much bigger effect, I believe, on the population, at least in this area, than climate change right now. So I think, although climate change does play a role, I don't think it's the silver bullet, if you want to call it that.
Yes. And I wanted to ask you if you can explain to me how this is study going to work, but like by steps, so we can understand better how the process going to be.
Yeah. So this will be year 2 of the study, and basically the goal of it is, so what we'll do is we have the boat in the water here in Cowichan Bay ready to go on an opportunistic basis. So if we have a good weather day or we get a whale report or both, we can kind of rally the team together pretty quick. There's only 2 or 3 of us, get on the boat and get out there. And so first of all, we're looking to collect sightings information. So see which whales we have here, what individuals they are, and where they're hanging out. And then collect photo ID images of them so we can provide that to different programs. And depending on the species, like if it's big killer whales, we'll shift over to, after photo ID, we'll shift over to environmental DNA or eDNA. And this is an aspect that we're doing for all 3 types of whales that we're focused on. So the southern residents, the bigs, and the humpbacks. We're testing this new method of collecting genetic information from the animals. So historically, getting any sort of genetic information from the animals, you would take a spring-loaded dart fired from a crossbow or a rifle that would take a blubber sample from the animal, which, it can be quite invasive to collect data that way. So our senior manager, Dr. Chloe Robinson, is an expert in environmental DNA, and what this allows us to do essentially is just go where the whale was. So when the whale goes on its dive and they point their noses or their rostrum down and start kicking their fluke, it sends this rush of water to the surface, creating a flat patch on the top of the surface called a fluke print. And we can scoop water from this fluke print. And inside of that fluke print, there will be things like skin cells that have shed off. It could be potential fecal matter in there. And then we're able to extract DNA from that material. So that's what we're doing for all 3 types, to see if this is a feasible way to replace more invasive methods. And then not only that, but we can also collect genetic information, which can give insights into, well, there's all sorts of things we can look into depending on what we want to do. But one of them, for example, could be trying to detect things like sex of the individual, genetic diversity within the population, paternity, which is something we don't know a lot of in whale species. So eDNA is one of our big projects or our big things we're interested in. And then if we do get on scene and it's southern resident killer whales or humpback whales, again, we'll do the photo ID and provide that to our sightings groups. And we'll also make a sightings report for all 3 types on our whale report app. And what this app does is not just collect the sightings data for the sightings network, but it also will send out an alert through the whale report alert system or the RAS, and it'll notify shipping traffic in the area of the whale's presence, where they are and what direction they're going, so they can hopefully take mitigating measures.
I'm Sebastian Arancibia, and you're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikki-King.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretanero.
And I'm Radhika Sikki-King. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
From the Broadcast Center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus, this is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Good afternoon, I'm Richard Davis, here to making news at 3:34. More evacuation orders are dropping around West Kelowna, just 1 day shy of 1 month since the McDougall Creek wildfire was sparked in the hills above the city. The Central Okanagan Emergency Operations Center has downgraded evacuation orders to alerts for numerous properties on West Side Road and in the Bear Creek area. West Side Road is also reopened, but delays are expected because a section between Raymer Bay Regional Park and Breer Creek Provincial Park can only allow single-lane alternating traffic. Officials say the power is still out in some areas, and they remind returning residents that they should be ready to leave on short notice because the 139 square kilometer wildfire is still ranked as out of control. Former youth in care, people that are looking to enroll in post-secondary education, can now benefit from an expansion of the provincial tuition waiver program. Our reporter, Alicia Nolasco, spoke to the Student Aid BC executive to know more about the expansion.
The provincial tuition waiver that was capped to people younger than 27, it has now been expanded to all ages. Executive Director of Student Aid BC, Chad Hoskins, says that the reason behind this decision is the impact in former youth care students.
And we certainly recognize that in today's environment, many people return to post-secondary education either later in their careers or multiple times throughout their careers.
Hoskins says that with the expansion, they're helping 1,200 students across the province. Alicia Nolasco, 1680, The Crow.
Now, rallies to support climate change and the use of fossil fuels are planned in several cities around BC in the next few days. Rallies and marches will be held tomorrow in Vancouver and Victoria, with the David Suzuki Foundation saying Suzuki will address the Victoria event set for the legislature lawn tomorrow. The foundation's executive director, Severn Cullis Suzuki, will speak at another rally at 3 p.m. tomorrow in front of the Vancouver Art Gallery as demonstrators complete a march through the downtown core from Vancouver City Hall. A march to protest fossil fuels is also set for Sunday morning in Maple Ridge, beginning outside City Hall at 8 a.m. Now, government websites are down in 4 provinces and territories, and cyber attacks have been blamed in at least 2 of them. Internet searches of websites for Yukon, Manitoba, Prince Edward Island, and Nunavut show all those sites are inaccessible. Prince Edward Island and Yukon say cyber attacks are behind the shutdowns, and officials in those jurisdictions say attackers are using the so-called denial of service tactic, or DDoS, generating artificial website traffic to overburden servers. They both say in news releases that the attacks have not compromised any data, but may hinder transactions at government service centers. Manitoba says its interruption is due to network and server infrastructure, and there is no indication it's related to a cyber attack. Federal Justice Minister R.F. Virani says it is troubling to see Saskatchewan float the idea of using the notwithstanding clause to ensure a controversial rule requiring schools to seek parental permission to call a student by a different name or pronoun stay in place. Premier Scott Moe told the Canadian Press the clause was on the table as he looks to legislate the change into law later this fall. Virani says he doesn't believe the provision belongs in the current debate around pronoun use in schools, saying it is also inappropriate to raise so early in the process.
We're seeing that more and more frequently used, and I think that is troubling to me as the Minister of Justice. It's certainly troubling to the Prime Minister as the son of a man who created that Constitution, in that constitutional framework. And I think there are better ways of addressing what can be legitimate concerns than by using a blunt instrument such as the notwithstanding clause or purporting to do it.
LGBTQ+ advocates warn policies like the one in Saskatchewan or New Brunswick could place kids in danger if their home life doesn't accept their gender expression. A follow-up on a story we've been tracking for the last few days, a murderer who escaped from Pennsylvania jail and was captured 2 weeks later told authorities he's been planning to carjack someone and flee up here to Canada or Puerto Rico. Deputy U.S. Marshal Robert Clark says 34-year-old Donatello Calavante told investigators he could sense law enforcement closing in and planned to get a car within 24 hours. Clark says Calicante revealed other details about his life on the run since his brazen escape from the Chester County Jail on August 31st, including that he survived on creek water and watermelon. Calicante was taken to state prison outside Philadelphia after his capture. Well, it's currently 23 degrees and sunny outside our studio in beautiful Burnaby, BC. It's a high of 24 today with the sun sticking around over the weekend. Friday and Saturday are going to feel a lot like today with sunny skies and highs of 21 degrees. The clouds sneak in on Sunday and temperatures will start to take a slight dip into the start of next week with highs of 18 degrees. Thanks for listening to our news coverage this week. We'll return at 10 a.m. Friday. I've been Richard Davis on 1680 The Crow.